Hello everyone, my name is Antoinette Bryan Hyatt, a Department of Educational Post-University student, course of study Diversity Issues in 21st Century Education. My professor is Dr. Virginia Metask. My presentation today is on one of the most well spoken and put together book that I've read as it relates to the different dialects and the appreciation of different dialects from different parts of the world. The book that I refer to, I speak to, is The Skin That We Speak. And the skin that we speak speaks directly to the language background of different culture and different race, and it speaks to ethnicity. As I read through this, as I present this book to you, you will learn of the appreciation of each and everyone's different culture, how it takes us back, way back to years before now as educators, as it gives us a glimpse into what the life was for this little girl and her family who are Caribbean descent, but whose language was built on the historical beginnings and happenings of the Caribbean and the rest of the world. Here in the overview, I will break and speak to the overview. One of the key themes of the book is the way languages is often used as a gatekeeper to privileged and social mobility. Many of the essay discussed how speakers of non-standard English dialects are frequently marginalized in educational settings, despite the richness and legitimacy of their linguistic heritage. The book urges that rather than enforcing rigid linguistics conformities, educators should embrace linguistic diversities and recognize the value of all dialects as a legitimate forms of expression. Understanding language and power. Through powerful essays and research-based arguments, the skin that we speak encourages educators, policymakers, and society at large to rethink traditional language ideologies. It calls for a more inclusive and respectful approach to linguistic diversities, one that acknowledges the historical and cultural significance of different speech patterns. By so, educators can help bridge the gap between home and school language, fostering a more equitable and affirming educational environment for all students. Dissecting each chapter of the skin that we speak. For this memory and mastery presentation, I have chosen the book titled The Skin That We Speak. I selected this book because I believe I can make meaningful connections with its content and the experiences it addresses. I was born and raised on the land of Jamaica. While we speak English, commonly referred to as the Queen's English, our mother tongue is Patois. In some ways, the dialect shares similarities with English, but its pronunciation alters English so significantly that it can be difficult for other English speakers, including the British, to understand the history of the Patois. The history of Patois dates to slavery, where it was deliberately developed by enslaved people as the people to disguise their communication from their slave masters, who were primarily British. As a teacher in America, the transition was not easy. I had to learn to slow down my speech and adapt to the pronunciation of the American Standard English, including adjustments to spellings. This experience has been and continues to be eye-opening. A multicultural education environment often brings me students whose English may be considered broken, yet it is far from lost. Their language is simply another medium for me to learn from, just as they learn from me. The dynamics of English and the diverse linguistic and cultural experience in a multicultural classroom truly reflects the unique richness of the American educational system. This book feels particularly relevant to my teaching and learning journey, and I'm excited about the insights it will provide during this stage of my career. In Chapter 2, Ernie Smith recounts his experiences growing up in the late 1940s and 1950s, speaking Ebonics, the language of his family and community. In school, his home language was labeled as corrupt speech, broken English, and linguistically depraved. Terms of the stigmatized his linguist identity. These negative perceptions linked his dialect to supposedly physical and mentally deficiency, impacting his educational journey and self-esteem. Smith's narrative underscores the detrimental effects of devaluing non-standard dialects in the educational setting. As I read the book and I've reflected on Ernie Smith, how his life was affected, because of his language, as they claim it was a deficiency. No one wanted to spend the time to really listen to him to make sure that he feels comfortable, and that caused some mental breakdown. In chapter 3, no kind of sense. Lisa DePlate shares a personal account involving her 11-year-old daughter, Maya. After transferring to a predominantly African American school, Maya's self-esteem improved, and she began adapting African American Standard English to avoid sounding ignorant. Through Maya's experience, they realized that acquiring an additional language code stems from identifying with its speaker and connecting the language to one's identity. She advocates her educational environment that honors students' home language and cultural background, promoting inclusivity and respect. This chapter emphasized the importance of recognizing and verifying diverse linguistic identities within the educational content, advocating for approaches that respect and incorporate students' cultural and linguistic background. This part of the book I was greatly appreciative of, with my personal experience coming into the educational sector after migrating to America, with my accent and also my personality that would identify me with my culture and my race. One has to understand who they are, and you have to stand soundly on your ground. For some, they might seem like they're clueless when you're talking to them. However, you can, of course, have to stay firm and be strong in who you are. Now, for students, can you imagine him being in a class of one student who is from a different country with different the dialect and the different linguistic, just to be challenged by the other kids when communicating, and not being able to communicate at the level of which they're communicating using the same linguistic dialect, which they're mainly appreciative of based on their experience. The student can feel left out, and of such can cause mental issues, not wanting to come to school, not wanting to participate in discussions, not wanting to strive for success, just feeling left in the back. Dissecting each chapter of the skin that we speak continues. In the skin that we speak, chapter 4 and 5 delved into the intricate relationship between language, identity, and education. Chapter 4, trilingualism, trilingualism. In this chapter, Judith Baker introduced the concept of trilingualism, posting that individuals often navigate three distinct forms of English. One, home English or dialect. This language used within one's family and community. Two, formal or academic English. The standardized language taught in educational institutions and encountered in media. Three, the professional English, the specialized English pertinent to one's occupation or professional field. This one it's broken down home English and it's like you just want to be comfortable at home. Like when I'm at home, I just speak patois. We understand each other. We enjoy the language, and we bring more vibes and more sass to the whole conversation. Just diving into our own Jamaican language. The formal academic English, like for example, for me, at work or in other settings, I have to make sure that I try to maintain a certain structure of pronunciation and enunciation. Least, even matter how hard I try, my accent, you can tell that it is not of an American accent. You could definitely match my accent with that of an islander. And then for some who knows the different island accent, they'll definitely say Jamaican. My professional English, that's a far more structured, really structured English. A little bit similar to that of my formal or academic English, but in the professional realm, you want to make sure that those that you're communicating with or you're having, this conversation with in a particular setting, you want to make sure that professionalism is maintained at a high standard, and therefore you want to make sure that you're communicating with them based on using the dialect or the language of the standard of that country in which you're in. Baker emphasized the importance of educators recognizing and respecting students' home language by valuing these linguistic foundations. Teachers can motivate students to master formal and professional English, facilitating this success across various society and professional contexts. Chapter 5, Some Basic Social Linguistic Concepts. Authored by Michael Stubbs. This chapter examines the interplay between language, societal attitudes, and educational outcomes. Stubbs discusses how the societal perception of language can influence educational success or failure. He introduced the concept of linguistic stereotypes, highlighting how bias towards certain dialects or speech patterns can lead to prejudiced attitude and systematic inequalities in educational settings. Stubb advocates for educators to become aware of these social linguistic dynamics to create a more equitable and supportive learning environment for all children. Together, these chapters underscores the necessities for educational system to acknowledge and integrate student linguistic backgrounds. By doing so, educators can help them dismantle linguistic prejudice and promote academic success for students from diverse language communities. As I continue to dissect each chapter of the skin that we speak, I look into chapter 6 and 7. Chapter 6 and 7 delves into the intricate connections between the language, culture, and educational assessments, as well as the challenges faced by speakers of non-standard English dialects. Chapter 6: Language, Culture, and the Assessment of African American Children. Authored by educational psychologist and historian Asia Hillard. 3. This chapter examines the historical and cultural context influencing the educational assessment of African American children. Hillard emphasized that teaching and learning are components. He argues that traditional assessments and methods often fail to consider the linguistic and cultural backgrounds of African American students, leading to the misinterpretations of their abilities and potential. Hillard advocates for cultural responsive assessment practices that recognize and value the linguistic heritage of African American children, thereby promoting more equitable educational outcomes. Chapter 7: No Kind of Sense. In this chapter, Lisa Delpit presents a personal narrative centered on her daughter Maya and the complexities of language acquisition and identity. Maya, having been immersed in a diverse linguistic environment, begins to adopt African American vernacular English as a marker of her identity. Delpit reflects on her initial concerns about Maya's language choices and the societal judgment associated with AAVE. Though this journey Delpit gains a deeper understanding of the importance of allowing individuals to navigate or choose their linguistic identities, she emphasized the need for educators and parents to support linguistic diversity and to recognize the role of language in shaping one's sense of self and community. Together, these chapters underscores the necessities for educational system to adopt cultural sensitive approaches that honor and incorporate students' linguistics and cultural backgrounds. By doing so, educators can foster environments where students feel valued and are given equitable opportunity to success. Reflection on the skin that we speak, language, identity, and teaching. Reflection on the skin that we speak. As a teacher in America, my transition was not easy. I had to learn to slow down my speech and adapt to the pronunciation of American Standard English, including adjusting to spellings. This experience has been and continues to be eye-opening. Teaching in a multicultural educational environment means working with students whose English may be considered broken, yet I see it all differently. Their language is not lost. It is simply another medium for me to learn from, just as they learn from me. The diverse linguistic and cultural experiences in my classroom reflects the richness of the American educational system. The skin that we speak resonates with me deeply, particularly Lisa Delpit's discussion on language deficiencies, or what some perceived as a deficiency. The truth is, accent and dialect shapes by one land of origin can present pronunciation and enunciation challenges. As I continue to teach and live in America, I'm privileged to guide my young learners in refining their pronunciation. Earlier this week, I worked with my students on writing sentences. As these 5 and 6-year-olds learn to pronounce words, manipulate sounds by decoding, and construct sentences. It is crucial to encourage them to read what they have written. My students have now mastered this skill and eagerly participate in these activities. However, I still notice challenges with simple words like ball. They say ball. And like fan, they pronounce it as fen, and 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 men instead of man. This, in its essence, will create a spelling issue because when they say ball, they hear a O and not a A, and when they say fan, they're hearing the E in the middle sound and not the A as in fan. One-on-one instructions helps me address these challenges, allowing me to draw from my Jamaican Standard English background. I teach my students how to effectively pronounce words so they can clearly hear each letter sound and spell words correctly. The book the book feels particular relevant to this book feels particular relevant to my teaching journey, and I'm excited about the insight it will provide as this stage of my career. Beyond my classroom, the skin that we speak also brought me back to my own experiences growing up in Jamaica. I vividly recall evenings in my community, especially during school holidays, when language when which when language played a crucial role in our interaction. Every time I return to Jamaica, I have to remind myself of my native language and make a conscious effort to speak patois fluently. Otherwise, I risk standing out. Not only do I struggle to maintain the 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 fluidity uh, and accent of patois, but I also face the opposite challenge in America, ensuring that my native language does not overshadow the American Standard English. I'm still mastering. My rich Jamaican culture family here in America provides a sense of belonging, reminding me that our dialect is valued and appreciated no matter where I am. As I work, I have adopt at work, I have adopted my communication style to align with the American cultural norms. However, the skin that we speak has encouraged me to remain rooted and grounded in my cultural dialect while embracing the language of the environment I now live in. In conclusion, the skin that we speak is a powerful exploration of the intersections between language, identity, culture, and education. Through a collection of essays, the book challenged the perception that non-standard English dialects are deficient instead of arguing that they are rich, complex, and deeply tied to personal and cultural identity. The author emphasized that language is not just a tool for communication, but also a message, but also a marker of power, social belongings, and self-worth. One of the book's most important message is that educators must acknowledge and respect linguistic diversity rather than suppress it. My vivid my By validating students' home language while teaching them to navigate the dominant language structure, teachers can create more inclusivity and inclusive and empowering learning environment. This approach helps students maintain their cultural identities while gaining access to broader academic and professional opportunities. Ultimately, the skin that we speak calls for a shift in education and societal attitudes towards language. Rather than seeing non-standard English as a barrier, It should be embraced as a bridge that connects individuals to their histories, communities, and future success. The book serves as a reminder that language is an essential part of who we are, and honoring linguistic diversity is key to fostering a more equitable and just society. Connecting with people with different culture of origin is one of the most challenging parts of living in a digital world. Every culture has its ethics and morals, and each one of them creates different experiences for their community. Additionally, they might speak separate language and have different origins too. These communities have unique experience dealing with the same situation. Monosovel, E. 2010.